Welcome to a new era of dentistry, the ultimate podcast for uncovering the latest trends, breakthroughs, and real-life stories in the dental industry, hosted by Ashley Bond with Wisdom, along with co-host Stephenie Neville. This podcast will explore hot topics, chat with industry leaders, and share the stories that are redefining how dental professionals enhance patient care and the dental practice environment. Let's get started and reshape the future of dental care together, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the show. We want to bring a very important discussion to our lovely audience today because we've seen a very hot topic trending more than ever on social media. The big question is, how do you build and retain the perfect front desk? We're seeing discussions around using virtual assistants, outsourcing versus not outsourcing, competitive salaries, right down to cell phone and dress code policies. And of course, you have the leadership side of it, asking the questions. You have people chiming in about how they feel about the rules and retention and so much more. So let's address the elephant in the room first and foremost. Obviously, our show is produced and powered by a remote dental billing company. If you haven't seen us, check out withwisdom.com. But I'm here to say with 100% assurance that we do not think every single practice needs that. We want to unpack the whole gambit in the hopes that we can bring some light to this topic for anybody who needs it, whether they want to outsource or not. So that being said, Ashley, in case our listeners don't know your story, which you can actually go back to our first couple of episodes and learn, but just in case, real quick, what made you start a dental billing company? Just give us a recap.
Quick recap, long story short. So my father, dentist in St. Louis, Missouri, and after I stopped working for him, he went through just a lot of turnover that I know offices are dealing with now. Lots of billing mistakes. I would go in and clean it up, and it was about 4 years of back and forth in and out of his office trying to help him out. Decided to start a remote billing company to help him. So it's kind of a happy accident that we got started, but the trend was the issues he was going through and the pain points he was going through. It was not isolated. And a lot of our dentists and offices are going through the exact same things. So we are here to help make that much smoother and help the offices collect a lot more. So that is how we got started, just seeing my dad's pain. And now we get to help offices all over, which it's very interesting to talk to a new office this last week. And she had brought up that even at nighttime, she can't sleep. And it reminded me so much of my father that he was waiting for that text message to come that said, I can't show up to work today. And living in that fear every day of who's going to show up and who's going to make it into the office is so real for dentists, especially if you have a small team. So it was just refreshing to know that we can help give that stability to her office so that she doesn't have to have sleepless nights waiting to see who's not going to show up to help in the front office.
Yeah, it's so hard, even with the most amazing team. You know, there's so much that you just can't predict, and dentists don't need to be spending their time trying to enter insurance payments.
Yes, no, they don't.
So, staffing issues aside, say somebody's trying to decide, should I outsource or should I not outsource from a cost perspective, even? How should an office balance the decision between outsourcing or keeping it in-house, especially for smaller and growing practices?
Yeah, absolutely. And my father's practice was a smaller practice. So those are near and dear to my heart, those smaller private practices. The decision really comes down to your numbers and knowing your numbers too. So whether you're in-house billing or outsourcing, you should be going over at a bare minimum every month crucial reports to see how is your office doing when it comes to collections. So that's your collection percentage number every month, going over your adjustments that are done every month, your AR numbers, so for insurance and your total aging. Are we reviewing those patients or those insurance claims every single month at least that's on that report, and what's been the follow-up on those? And if you're finding that, it is a lot for a team to handle, especially if you have a small team. A lot of times you're on hold with insurance companies, you're trying to post payments while the patients are calling, asking questions, you're trying to keep the schedule booked. It's a million things happening at once. And insurance has made it harder and harder every year. So if you're running your reports and you just notice, hey, we aren't maybe doing the follow-up we need to, or our numbers are either the collection percentage is lower than we want or the A is higher than we want, it's not necessarily the team's fault. Insurance has made it so hard. So that would be my instinct of, hey, let me see what options are out there to help support my team. It's not that my team's not doing a good job. It's that they're trying to juggle so many balls at the same time that something has to give. So that's what I highly recommend. Know your numbers, run your numbers on a weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah, really, startup practices even just want to add
Mhm.
to that. There's nothing wrong with hiring somebody who is a great administrative candidate. Maybe they did medical billing or, who knows your specs were for hiring that person, but they're not a dental billing expert. So even if you're only seeing 10 patients a week in the very beginning, and you just need a great person at the front desk to represent your practice, if you outsource your billing to the experts, in tandem, then your front desk person actually learns the right way to do things, give it to that side of the team. And honestly, startup practices were always my favorite because you're all getting in there right ahead of the game. The AR doesn't go up. Everything's super clean and it
Yeah.
stays that way. And of course, with Wisdom, we have the scaled pricing. So when you aren't collecting a whole lot, like over $20,000, we can always adjust the pricing to that.
Yeah.
So all that being said, in terms of front desk retention for practices that are tenured, what do you think is the most underrated factor that offices often overlook when it comes to what their staff can get done and how they feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, we have a real crisis here. That is burnout. And it's not just burnout with dentists, because that is so real. It is burnout in the industry, even with our front office team members. So there is, again, so much on their plate. And it's a lot for one or two people to handle. So, what I would recommend is, as a practice owner, list out all the things that each person in your office is doing. So, for your front office team, what is on their plate? Do you know what is on their plate? List it all out. Do time study on how long each of this takes to do in a practice. What you will see, there's not enough hours in the day to do it all and to do it all well. So that is my first tip, is just be on the lookout for burnout. Be on the lookout for that team member that, maybe their personality is shifting, that they used to be so positive and bright, and you just have noticed maybe a personality change. Check in with them. What is on their plate and what is possible to take off their plate? I do love what you said about the previous question with startups, and it is so important to hire for personality as much as it is for skill. And so when you do have billing experts that are in there doing the dental billing for you, it opens up such a larger opportunity of people that you can hire to help in your practice. And there is nothing better than someone that is just so relational in a dental practice and can speak to that customer service that patients are looking for in today's dentistry.
Absolutely. I know we can't stress that enough. And that's not to leave our tenured people behind because,
Yeah.
hey, I would have a job if somebody with no dental experience had filled my shoes. But there wasn't a staffing issue back then. Everybody wasn't, scrambling to try to find the balance between who's doing what and how do we maintain stability and grow and have personable people at the desk. Because as we all know, patients, how many times has everybody heard it, especially to our dentists out there? The patient sits in your chair and they go, I hate the dentist and I don't want to be here. And it's, so the person at the front desk being that gatekeeper that is all smiles, ready to go, not burned out, making them feel good, offering them coffee, whatever your setup is, your patient's going to be nicer to you when they get in the chair. So,
100%. And you earn their trust. It's those little things, those
yep.
relational pieces that are so important with patients. It's amazing how you'll see your collection numbers will increase just when you gain the patient's trust, that they get to know you, you become their family. The retention of patients is so much higher that way. So yeah, it's can be overlooked, the patient experience, but it is one of the most important parts of the dental practice.
Yeah, and it all ties into production too. Case acceptance is going to go up. It
Mhm.
all goes back to that. All right, so moving on from that, let's deliver on our promise and kind of scoot back a little bit and say, all right, so say a practice is like, I will never outsource. I don't want to outsource. I want it all right here where I can see it. For those who want to keep it that way, what key strategies should they focus on for efficiency, collections and retaining their beloved staff?
Yeah, absolutely. So these regular check-ins are so crucial. So I want to have two types of check-ins between the doctors and the office manager, or maybe it's the doctor, office manager, and the insurance coordinator. One of those check-ins should be going over the reports, like I said before. So who are the patients that are on the aging report? What have been their last reach outs? Where can the doctor maybe step in and give some advice? What about for insurance aging claims? What is on the over 90? What is stopping us from getting that paid? This is where, too, collaboration is so important. So if there is a common denial that you're coming across as a front office team member, it's important that you get the clinical team involved as well. It's a team effort to get claims paid. It's not just a front office duty. So those meetings are important to give feedback to the doctor. Where if you maybe see a lot of buildups are being denied, what can we do with our clinical notes? What can we do to get better intraoral photos during the procedure? How can we make our documentation better? So these meetings are so important just to build the trust within the team and also the collaboration that can be missed when sometimes in the practice it's like back and front and there's no mixing. That will cause delayment in payments. So it's really a group effort and every team member has their piece of the puzzle to help get claims paid. So number one, those kind of check-ins. But then number two, are you having personal check-ins with your team? So this isn't as much the accountability piece and not as much about how efficient are we or where are we to our goals, but just check in on how are you doing? Are we having those check-ins with our team members to see on a personal level how they're doing? Those are so important because day in and day out at dental office, it's like a new fire every day. You don't know what you're walking into. Maybe the computer's down and you might have all the best intentions to connect with your team. But if it's not something scheduled, it's not going to happen. So I would recommend scheduling one-on-ones, personal check-ins and accountability check-ins every month, at least maybe every other month. Maybe you can't start doing it every month. But that is going to help build, again, the trust in the team, but then just see what's on their plate, see what you can help with, and just let them know you're there to support them.
Such great advice. I just want to add, too, that everybody in the office should feel comfortable with asking why, especially the doctor, office manager, or both. Why are we doing this way? Why do we do adjustments this way? If you're not 100% clear and sure, because I think sometimes, and I've even had this answer myself, the answer is, well, because that's how we've always done it, or that's how whoever taught me before, however I got here. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. A leadership coach I had some time ago gave me a really good comparison for this conversation, and it has stuck with me forever. They told a story about their grandma always baking a Christmas ham and cutting it in half and putting it into pans. Well, fast forward years later, the whole family is still putting these hams in two different pans. And they're like, why are we doing that? Well, because grandma always did it that way. Well, grandma had a tiny oven and tiny pans and had to. But now everybody has is put the big ham in the big pan. You don't have to cut it in half. So I guess that's my goofy analogy for the day.
No, but it's so true. And we can fall into that pit in dentistry is that if you are doing billing the way that you were doing it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it has changed. So billing and strategies to get claims paid has changed and it will continue to change. So if you are doing things the same way, it is time to take a step back and just wonder, what could we do different? What is there out there? What resources could I look into? Because chances are there is a better way now. And so it takes being vulnerable enough to ask for that help and vulnerable enough for people to ask why, knowing that as a team, we are not here pointing fingers at each other that you're doing this wrong, but it's let's grow together. Let's get better together as a team. And you're going to constantly be growing in this field, which can be so exciting.
Absolutely. And there are so many resources out there, which actually leads me to ask you, what resources do you recommend to support that continuing education and collaboration within the front, well, within the whole office, really?
Oh, yeah. So 100% my answer will always be ADOM. If you have not heard of ADOM, you need to stop what you're doing right now. Google ADOM. It is the best resource that I have found out there for not only just office managers, but every part of the team. So if you're a dentist, if you're a dental assistant, if you're a hygienist, if you're an insurance coordinator, there are so many tools. It's such an affordable yearly membership. We do actually have an exclusive promotion code too for yearly membership. So we will put that in the show notes. But there are so many videos you could watch. The community at ADOM is amazing. Their Facebook page, there's no judgment zone. It is your own tribe of people that have walked in your shoes, that are going through what you're going through. And instead of being in your isolated bubble, which a lot of practices, when I was an office manager, I was in a bubble. I didn't know how other offices were operating. We didn't talk to offices in the area and talk about best practices. So that's what's amazing about ADOM is you're able to connect with your local community, but then even outside and just the national community to see what is everybody doing. And there's no stupid questions, which is so amazing because I had a lot of silly questions, not only in the beginning, there are still things that I don't understand, and that's okay. Like, you're never going to know it all. And that to me is great news because it means we always get to keep learning and getting better, and we're not stuck where we are today. So, highly recommend ADOM. If you're not a member, check it out, and we can put that link in the show notes for the special discount too.
Yeah, ADAM is so amazing. And within that, you'll find other resource opportunities like webinars. We host some webinars, so keep an eye out for us. Lots of partners we have that do consultants. You can always email us if you want something very content specific, info@withwisdom.com. You don't have to be a client. Just shoot us an email, put attention Steph or attention Ashley in the subject, and then in the body, say, hey, we were really lost when it comes to this subject. And if we don't have the answer, we're going to help point you in the right direction where you can find it. Because like Ashley just said, it's okay to say, I don't know. We have a pool of over 100 people we can ask, but it still doesn't mean everybody always knows everything. So to add what Ashley was saying, I just want to say it's okay to answer with I don't know. And leaders, don't get upset when the answer is I don't know. Figure out how to find out together.
And that's the key there, to say, even if I don't know, but I will find out. Don't just stop at I don't know. Go to the I will find out, and then you find out together.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So, all that being said, what would you say is the biggest mistake that dental practice leaders can make? Like what leads to always baking the two hams instead of one?
Yes. So, and I love that analogy. I'm going to now use that and think about that every time when I think about change. I would say the biggest mistake or pitfall, really, when it comes to the front office team is holding on too tightly to what has always been done. So, as we said previously, insurance is a very changing game, billing's ever changing. And in the last few years, the administrative burden to do insurance billing has increased tenfold. So it is not like it used to be. Even back when I started, it was not to the intensity it is now when it comes to documentation, when it comes to getting claims paid and what insurances are going to deny. So to do your job well, sometimes the best thing is to just sit back and wonder, okay, why am I holding on to this so tightly? If I give this part of it up to someone that I trust, will it allow me the time to do things that I'm not able to do right now, like answering the phones, not being on hold with insurance companies, but talking to actual patients, being present with my patients when they're in the practice, working on getting the books scheduled, the unscheduled treatment on the books for the doctor. If you have an amazing insurance coordinator, in your practice, the last thing that I want to use that person for is to sit on hold with insurance companies. How much better could that amazing insurance coordinator be if they're speaking to your patients about treatment, about their estimate, but collecting their balances at time of appointment? So sometimes I feel like the best insurance coordinators, they're scared to give up that piece of communicating with the insurance companies, when really it can open up so many more opportunities to use their skills face to face with the patients. That is what I see being right now the most common pitfall is, you're holding on too tightly to the nitty-gritty stuff that can be outsourced, and then you're not able to utilize your abilities to speak to the patients without everything else that you're trying to juggle at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the more overwhelmed you are, the
Mm.
more likely you are to make a mistake. And too, Ashley, you're doing all those things and you're posting and you think you're fine. And you walk away, you get to the end of the day, you're already 5 minutes past when you should have locked the door, and you can't find 23 cents
Yep.
to balance. Is the worst feeling in the world. And it happens because you're going in and out of what you're doing. And it doesn't matter how great or efficient
Mm-mm.
you are. It just happens. And this actually reminds me of reference social media again. They were upset that they listened to some call logs and their front desk team member had sent patients down the road to another practice saying they couldn't schedule them. And the practice owner's like, there's room in my schedule a few weeks out. And the feedback was all about disciplinary action, maybe even termination. What I didn't see and what popped into my head first was, why? Why did
Mm.
the business assistant do that? Because I bet I can tell you why. It's not because they don't care about the doctor or they don't care about the practice. It's because probably they were so overwhelmed. They didn't even feel like they could ask the patient if they could call them back. Or, you have to get so much information when a new patient
Mm.
calls. That's one of the biggest signs of burnout that I can think of. It makes me sad for the office and
Yeah.
for the business assistant. So, I think that leads us into me asking you, like, what are some of the key advantages of outsourcing the front desk duties, especially in
Mm.
terms of efficiency, stability, and in cost? I think we talked about the first two a
Yeah.
bit, but let's get into the cost piece of it.
Right. And like you said, you went back to like balancing at the end of the day. That is very real. And if anybody says that they don't run into those issues, they're lying. I mean, when you're trying to do it all, something's got to give. Not that you don't figure it out, but when your attention is constantly being taken away from your duty that you have, that is just what's going to happen. So when it comes to the cost of outsourcing, we get this a lot. It has proven for our practices to have the greatest ROI for your practice. So especially if we're looking at just what you're collecting from insurance, when you're able to have a team that is just dedicated to collecting from insurance and their pay is determined by how much they're able to collect by insurance, that is a game changer. So it sometimes can feel like, oh, I have a front office team and I'm also paying for another team, like that's doubling my cost. But if you sit back and see what you're able to collect from having a dedicated team, 9 times out of 10, it always pays for itself. And that's why also we do month to month, because we want our services to pay for themselves. That's why we have a low retention rate. So not even just a financial benefit of what able you can collect from insurance and from patients, but also it's just we're able to be more efficient in what we're doing because we are dedicated just to that piece of the puzzle. So we aren't trying to post payments or focus on your age claims or writing appeals while phones are ringing, patients are asking us questions. We're able to dedicate our time directly to that. That in itself is what helps our offices increase their insurance collections. And then not only that, you're helping your front office team not feel burnt out, helping support them better, and the stability that just the tragedy that happened in North Carolina. We had some offices that were affected by the flooding and their practice was shut down, but we aren't shut down. So no matter what's going on, we are consistently working to get that AR in. So even if you're not producing, The doctor's on vacation, maybe he took a week off. We're still working. We're still getting that AR into the practice so that even if the office is going through hard times, we can help supplement that because we have a team that's always working and we don't, we're not taking vacation days, sick days. So that is also such an added benefit that especially helped my father when it came to constant turnover and the lack of the stability when it came to his collections.
Yeah. Yep. So, how are quality and patient experience ensured when you do outsource? What does that for those who are wondering, well, and we get this a lot, a patient's in my face at the desk and they're asking about a claim. I need to be able to give them an answer and
Yep.
I need to know everything all the time. What does that look like?
Yeah. And so you need to have the right team working with you. So when it comes to what we do, notes and communication is number one alongside transparency. So all of our notes are going to be so detailed that we have a certain process for everything we do. So if you have a patient that's standing there asking you, why do I owe a balance? Guess what? We have notes right there in the claim that describe exactly why the patient owes $50. So $50 because it downgraded to amalgam, $25 deductible. There's going to be no question on why the patient has a balance. Same with insurance aging. If a patient calls and said, hey, why isn't my claim paid yet? You're going to see from our detailed notes, what was the last action we took? When did we take that action? What did the representative say? What is the reference number? So that you can confidently speak to the patients when it comes to insurance claims that haven't paid, when it comes to posting. When we do our posting, we fill out a full report. So when we post payments for you, you don't have to guess what happened from that scan. We are going to highlight the adjustments. We're going to highlight the patient balances, the reason why. We're going to highlight the credits on the accounts. That is so important to see the credits that are on the accounts too. So that is going to be sent to you when we're done posting with your deposit slip. So you understand everything with that deposit that was done, but then also the notes in the practice management software. So crucial. And I don't hear from offices ever the complaint about transparency and communication. That, if you're looking for an outsourcing team, needs to be number one because you are partners together and it doesn't work without both people really collaborating the best that they can together. And that includes really clear communication. So that is very important to us and great question.
Yeah. So, would you say the biggest challenge for outsourcing that we see probably is not having the communication from the office or, that piece coming into us from them to make sure we're operating as a team?
Oh, yeah. And that's what I hear too. We have a lot of clients that they might leave another company and come to us. And the biggest concern I hear is about communication. And that's why that is like our number one goal, transparency. We want to show you what we're doing instead of you sitting there wonder, what are these people doing remotely behind the scenes? Like, no, we're going to show you. We're going to show you the numbers that I talked about in the beginning of this episode. But then also the hardest part is for us as a billing company is if there's that lack of collaboration with the office. So there might be things that we know if we introduce this in the practice, it's going to help you get paid faster. So that could be tips on adjustment to clinical notes or a documentation that we don't have, but that is needed to get the claim paid. So when we have a team that loves that feedback and will take it to heart and execute some of those tips and advice that we have, it makes the best relationship. The hardest part is when we can't send a claim because say it's SRP and there's no period chart on file. And we're sitting there knowing it's going to get denied and we don't hear from the office. That is the hardest part of what we do is we want to get you paid. So it takes both of us working together and helping with these systems and processes in the office so that we're fixing the root issues on the front end, not just trying to clean up the AR that hits the back end because of what's happening on the front end.
Exactly. And, you need, if you're outsourcing, just like if you're keeping it in house, you've got to have both sides of the team whether it's your clinical to admin or your manager to just your insurance verification person or your manager to your billing company. Everybody's got to put the utmost importance on communication and feedback. Ashley, is there one big myth you ever hear that people think about outsourcing that just isn't true? Can you give us any juicy stuff there?
So, what I have come across the most is just the myth that they are going to mess everything up. They're going to mess up my books, which, not to say, has not happened. Like, we have gone into offices that have used companies that they have made a mess. So, that fear is rooted in something, but just like, you can't generalize that every company is the same. So if you had one bad experience with one company, doesn't mean they're all that way. So we really pride ourselves on the quality that we do for the offices. So if you've had a bad experience, I recommend reaching out to multiple other companies. So just because you had one bad experience does not mean they're all the same. And you need to find the right company that's the right fit for your office. So, we're not going to be for everyone. There is some offices that are going to be better at another company, but know the questions to ask when you're going into it. Ask them about how they post primary and secondary insurance. That's a big tip. We see a lot of false credits done that way. It's okay to kind of interview a company. Ask them how their communication is. Ask them, what are the expectations with the AR? Make sure that you know what's going on with your aging report and that if you have a question about a claim, they should know what is going on. Make sure too that ask for references. So I love when people reach out to us, I can tell them, what our processes is. But what I love to do is give them our actual clients so they can reach out to them and hear firsthand how the experience is. So ask for references too for a billing company. And I think that will help. I do think the next few years, there's going to be a huge shift. I think that all dental practices will be outsourcing their dental billing. So, much like every medical really office outsources their billing. Dental's always a little bit behind that. Even at ADOM this year, there's a huge shift from where only, a few people talked about outsourcing, where we would have people come to our booth and, the speakers and presenters they're talking about this administrative burden that is so real and is so different than it used to be, that people would come to our booth and say, well, I guess we really do now need to look into outsourcing. Like, it doesn't have to be scary. You just need to find the right fit for your office, making sure that you know what's going on with your numbers if you're outsourcing, and don't be scared to try it. So try it does not mean you're locked in forever, but see if it does free up time for your team to focus more on the patients.
Yeah, we actually even have a blog. If you go to withwisdom.com, resources, how to interview a billing company.
Yeah.
To interview us if you are use it to interview anybody.
Yes.
Lots of great questions in there, such as some outsourcing companies actually also outsource. And
That's true.
they aren't always transparent on their website. So that's always a good question to ask. We choose not to do that. Everybody's here stateside with us. One myth I've seen circulating that I want to talk about just a little bit before we recap and close up here is that a lot of people are utilizing VAs, which is wonderful. We're pro virtual assistant, like we're all about technology and efficiency, but a virtual assistant to maybe answer phones or schedule appointments or do those basic things in your software is one thing. There is no way. It shocks me every time I see somebody say, I hired a VA and they're doing my dental billing. And they
Yes.
didn't have any experience. I'm thinking,
Yes.
I'd love to see your aging report and or your adjustment report,
Yes.
because there is absolutely no way that could be working from a collection standpoint. So just to put that out there, VA is wonderful for a lot of things. You could essentially outsource your whole front desk to some degree if you have that type of thing for scheduling and confirmations and even answering phones. But you got to leave the billing to the experts because practice management, the rules, there's so much to it. I'll stop rambling about that now.
I know we could go on and on about, but it is so crucial that the person handling your dental billing is an expert in that field, because EOBs are confusing on purpose. There's no standard EOB. Adjustments, by making sure you're doing adjustments by the correct provider, making sure you're doing line item posting, making sure that you know the state laws and the federal laws when it comes to insurance, the never ever laws, the can I charge my UCR fee or can I charge my in-network fee? There are so many rules. Claim submission. What do I need to attach? You miss that one piece of an attachment that is needed. Your claim went from getting paid in 14 days to on your over 90. So yeah, I cannot stress that enough, that whether you're doing it in-house or outsourcing, make sure it is someone that is an expert in dental billing. And if you don't know how to know, reach out to us, info@withwisdom.com. We will give you questions that you can ask to see how equipped they are to do the dental billing in your office. So we would love to help, share those resources or any questions that you have about dental billing. We are always here to help.
Yep. And that being said, just a quick recap to answer the question in the title of this episode. How do you build the perfect front desk? Standard operating procedures and division of duties, whether it's in-house or outsourced. Very, very clear expectations. Don't expect one person to wear 20 hats, especially in the office. And if you are that person thinking you can do it all, take a step back and ask yourself, do I have to do this or do I want to do it? And how could I serve my patients better? Also, we talked about being open to listen and being open to asking questions, both in communication. So that's the foundation, whether you outsource or you don't. Ashley, did I forget anything there?
I would just say, don't stop learning. So whether you're brand new to dental or you've been doing this for 30 years, don't stop learning. There's always something to grow, and that's okay. Like, it is okay to not know it all. Nobody does. No one knows it all. So I think it is also okay just to sit in that and be confident in your skills and what you do know and what you do bring to the table, because there are amazing team members out there. So I hope that everyone just knows how valued they are. And it's based on just who you are as a person and not what you do. So just know that, and know we're here to help you and support you however we can.
Yep, absolutely. And hats off to everybody working so hard to make sure dental patients get what they deserve.
It's a hard job.
It is so hard. So hard.
It is. It's a hard job. And you don't always get the recognition that you deserve. So we are here to tell you we see you. You are doing amazing. And don't doubt that. If you're here listening to this podcast, you care. You are growing and making yourself better. So keep at it, and just know that we see you and we appreciate all that you do for our dental offices.
That was the most amazing thing to say to end a podcast. So we'll catch you next time. Thank you for joining us on today's journey through a new era of dentistry with your host, Ashley Bond. With wisdom in their network of industry leaders, each episode offers fresh insights and support in the evolving world of dentistry. Subscribe, stay tuned, and transform your career, practice, and patient experience. Until next time, keep innovating, keep caring, and stay smiling.